If she translates, I'll give her mother my job, the millionaire said with a smirk, his laughter echoing through the marble hall of his luxury office. The men around him chuckled, their suits crisp, their confidence sharp, but none of them knew that in less than 5 minutes, that little black girl standing quietly in the corner was going to silence the room, and change everything. The story begins in the bustling city of New York, where skyscrapers touch the clouds and dreams often get lost in the noise. A 10-year-old girl named Amara Johnson stood beside her mother, clutching a worn-out backpack. Her mother, Grace Johnson, had come to interview for a cleaning job at Hanlon Global Enterprises, one of the largest international trading firms in the city. Grace was a single mother, a woman of strength carved by hardship. She had worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table after her husband passed away from cancer. The world hadn't been kind to her, but her heart had never hardened. She believed that no matter how life treated her, she would always treat others with dignity. That morning, she wore her best outfit, a plain white blouse and a long black skirt, ironed perfectly. But standing among the company's shining glass walls, she felt small. The receptionist's eyes scanned her from head to toe, judging her simple clothes. "You're here for janitorial work, right?" the woman at the front desk asked, her tone polite but distant. "Yes, ma'am," Grace said softly. "Sit there. Someone will come for you." Amara sat quietly beside her mother, swinging her legs back and forth. She had brought her notebook. She loved learning languages. She wasn't like other kids who played games all day. Amara found comfort in words. English, Spanish, French, and lately, Chinese. Her late father had once told her, if you want to see the world, learn to speak its languages. She took that to heart. After what felt like forever, a tall man in an expensive navy blue suit approached. His name was Richard Hanlon, the CEO of the company. A millionaire, known for his ruthless business tactics and even more ruthless pride. He eyed Grace and Amara with the kind of look that said they didn't belong there. "Mrs. Johnson, right?" he asked, glancing at his clipboard. "You're here for the custodial position?" Grace nodded. "Yes, sir." Richard sighed. "We don't usually do interviews for this position. But I wanted to see the person myself." He looked at Amara. "And this is?" "My daughter, sir. I couldn't leave her home alone today." Richard's lips curled into a faint smirk. "Fair enough." He waved for them to follow him. As they walked through the glass corridors, they passed groups of employees, sharp suits, polished shoes, and confident smiles. Some of them stared, some whispered. Grace kept her head high. When they entered the conference room, several people were seated around the table. On the screen was a live video call with a group of Chinese investors. They were speaking Mandarin rapidly, a blur of words Grace didn't understand. Richard sighed. "We were just finishing a call," he said, taking his seat. "Our translator didn't show up." "Useless." He looked at his team. "We can't finalize the deal without knowing what they're saying." A young executive laughed nervously. "Sir, maybe we can." Before he finished, Richard's cold blue eyes shifted to Grace and her daughter. "Well," he said mockingly, "since we have an audience, maybe the lady's daughter can help." He chuckled. "If she can translate this conversation, I'll give her mother my job." The room erupted in laughter. Even the investors on the screen looked confused. Grace's face flushed red with embarrassment. "Sir, that's not." But Amara stepped forward, her voice calm and clear. "What if I can?" The laughter stopped. Richard leaned back in his chair, amused. "You? Translate Mandarin Chinese?" Amara nodded. "Yes, sir." "All right then," he said with a smirk. "Go ahead. Impress me." Everyone turned toward the screen. The Chinese businessman on the other end began speaking again, his tone serious. Amara listened intently, her small eyes focused, her expression calm. Then, in perfect English, she translated every word. The room went silent. The man on screen continued, faster this time, more complex phrases, business terms, numbers, legal references. Amara didn't flinch. She translated every sentence smoothly, clearly, with an accent so natural it stunned everyone. When she finished, one of the Chinese investors smiled warmly. "Your daughter is very smart," he said, looking at Grace through the screen. Amara replied instantly in Chinese. "Thank you, sir." The man laughed joyfully. "Her Chinese is better than my son's." Laughter spread, not mocking this time, but in pure amazement. Richard sat frozen, the smirk wiped from his face. His team stared in disbelief. How did you?" he began. Amara smiled. "I learned from my neighbor, Mr. Lee. He teaches me every day after school." Richard blinked, still stunned. "But, why?" She looked at him with innocent eyes. "Because languages connect people, sir. My dad used to say that words can open doors that money can't." Silence filled the room. For the first time that day, Grace saw something change in Richard's expression: humility. He cleared his throat, stood, and walked toward Grace. "Mrs. Johnson," he said quietly, "I owe you and your daughter an apology." Grace blinked, unsure what to say. "I was wrong," he continued. "About both of you. And about what really matters." He turned to his team. "Effective immediately, Mrs. Johnson will not be working as a janitor. She'll be joining our office as a staff coordinator. We could use someone with her dignity and patience here." Tears welled in Grace's eyes. "Sir, I don't know what to say." Richard smiled faintly. "You raised a remarkable daughter. That says enough." The Chinese investors on the screen clapped, congratulating her. The room that had once been filled with laughter now held a sense of respect, genuine, earned respect. As Grace and Amara walked out of the building, the sunlight poured through the glass doors. Grace knelt down and hugged her daughter tightly. "You saved me today, baby," she whispered. Amara shook her head. "No, Mama. You saved me every day. I just returned the favor." They both laughed softly, tears mixing with smiles. Across the street, Richard Hanlon stood by the window of his office, watching them leave. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a millionaire. He just felt human. Later that week, he called a meeting. "From now on," he said to his executives, "we'll be launching a scholarship program for children who show exceptional potential regardless of where they come from. Talent has no color, no background, no limit." And that was the day Hanlon Global Enterprises began changing lives for the better, all because one little black girl spoke up in a language no one expected her to know. Years passed. Amara grew up, studied linguistics, and became an international interpreter, traveling the world, breaking barriers, and helping people understand each other not just through words, but through compassion. And every time she stood before a crowd, she'd remember that day, the day when the world laughed at her, and she answered with a language louder than pride. Because sometimes, the most powerful voice isn't the loudest in the room, it's the one that speaks truth when others expect silence. And that's exactly what Amara did. She didn't just translate words. She translated hearts.